my name is Zani. I use they them pronouns, and I am a dance movement artist. Currently based in Brighton in the UK. But I'm originally from Italy, and I grew up in Italy and kind of worked between the UK and Italy.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction and for being available for this interview. And I would like to start with the first question. That is, would you like to share how life is for a non-binary artist working in the field of performing art in your country?
hmm Um, yeah, I guess what's happening in the UK at the moment in terms of um, generally the political and um, happenings towards trans people is that there is being quite a um, big attacks on uh, trans rights and um, kind of that, yeah, I guess it's something that's happening quite widely across Europe and beyond. And it's definitely been a big part of the political scene here in the UK for the last few years. And like even over a couple of days ago is news that there is possibly a ban of trans people in all gendered spaces within society that might be implemented
Mhm.
quite soon. So generally, there is quite a not very friendly um, scene all around, and that's generally quite. I guess it's feeding that sort of approach from people um, in everyday life as well. And within the performing arts, or maybe I can, yeah, I guess I can speak mostly for the dance field and
And yes, and
interdisciplinary.
if you can share what is the public opinion in this field that you work in performing arts.
Yeah,
Yes.
I guess from my experience, there's I have in the last few years, I have made a point of being quite selective in terms of the spaces that I choose to put myself in, that I choose to, the kind of jobs that I choose to work, to make sure that they are spaces that allow me to be all of me and to bring all of me. Um, and so yeah, I guess I mostly work, or a lot of my work happens within queer spaces or spaces that are queer friendly, or that where I have some kind of conversation or some kind of vibe check before going into the space to make sure that it won't be a hostile space, an environment for me. Um, and and so yeah, I guess I that's not all spaces. There are definitely um, people, organizations, companies that don't have a very inclusive or friendly approach, and there have been examples and of situations where um, people have been openly transphobic towards trans people within a work environment, and just generally not being yeah, not really being a space inclusive for trans people. And so it's, I guess there is quite a mix of spaces that come with um, different values. And yeah, personally, I have made a choice to not compromise on that for myself, which at times comes with less job opportunities or um, less of a choice of spaces that I can go into. Um, um, because yeah, not all spaces feel completely safe.
Mm-hmm. So, from your position as a performing art, how do you use your body in on the stage?
Mhm. Um, just looking at the notes that I made for myself. Um, yeah, so I um obviously work with my like the body's my main tool, my main instrument for my work, because I that movement is the my starting point, the main language, creative language that I use. And a lot of what I do in my practice and in my work is to access a space of really feeling the body, and the experiencing of the body in terms of sensations, feelings, accessing the physical experience. And with that, I'm really interested in unlearning and taking off all of the layers of conditioning and um, binary structures that have been kind of put on us and on me, um, throughout my whole life. And yeah, I'm really interested in accessing a space of and being with questions of who I am and who can I be today, each day, in each moment, and and just accessing that space of being playful and being curious, beyond the this is how a body is meant to be, or a specific body, taking off all of the gendering of body parts, the gendering of movement, and just working towards an undoing and unlearning um, all of that, and discovering the in infinite possibilities that exist in the body. And yeah, and just really kind of change the frame of reference of being a body and seeing a body and being a movement, and centering queerness and transness, and just taking off, yeah, all the layers of normativity that are layered onto us.
Mhm. And considering that society interprets the process of gender affirmation in this certain way that you explain in binary, in your experience, how did you perceive the behavior of the others towards this? When you start, I don't know, working, socializing with the others, did you notice a change of behavior of the others toward yourself?
In my starting to present myself in a certain way, in as I who I am today, do you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Um, uh, I think because I didn't necessarily have like a point where I transitioned in a I it was quite a gradual. I don't necessarily use the word transition for myself either. I guess it was a becoming that I was sharing with people, and I'm still sharing with people as it's happening. And uh and so there wasn't like a specific point where the shift happened. Um I guess I sometimes notice that um, if I'm talking to people who are not as used to being in conversations with a person who is um, in the gender creative spectrum or um, who is kind of like, yeah, not fluent in speaking in ways beyond the gender binary. I notice that when people are talking to me or in a space where I'm present, I feel that there is sometimes some like hesitancy or some kind of not really knowing how how to be in a conversation, or sometimes the fears as well of like fear um, of maybe getting it wrong.
Mm-hmm. And how do
Um,
you understand the word discrimination? And have you ever felt discriminated in areas, I don't know, social life, work, in performing arts?
um, how I understand the word discrimination, um, for me is a different treatment based on someone's um based on how someone on like social categories um and um and like different treatments um that are not really based on any foundation other than seeing someone as other or as different. Um, and if I think about um, what how I see discrimination, maybe um, uh, translating into my work, as well as I guess the kind of um, violence or microaggressions or abuse are maybe one form of discrimination. And then there is also another form of discrimination that I see as not having access to as many jobs or as many spaces in terms of like spaces of work and also training opportunities, or needing to like I've been in spaces where I've felt the need to modulate myself and kind of being careful about how I might speak or needing to make choices about how to present myself, how to bring myself into a space, how much of myself to share or not to share, dependent on yeah, the context, the people around me. And so not that that layer of um, thinking about protection and safety and not just being able to just be in a space.
Mhm. How safe do you feel at work? And when do you have any specific needs or necessities that you would like to happen in the field?
I think I find it really helpful when there is space to have conversations about how, for example, having check-ins in a space feels really helpful to me, of just having a moment of being like, how are we all feeling in a space? And that being something that is shared between everyone who is present and not just directed at the person who is in some way different or seen as needing uh, more other than being fragile. It's not, because also I think there is so many layers of different needs that people can have that are not necessarily because of someone's identity or someone's any element of intersectional identities. Like we can all have different needs at different times. And so having that space to voice things, and even to voice when things are feeling good, to create that kind of shared language in the space and that knowledge of this is how we can all meet at our best and bring the best in everyone. Um, so that's something that feels really helpful and helps me feel safe because I know that I have a space to voice things if anything comes up. And also before going into a space, having seeing something that explicitly indicates to me that I am welcome in that space is something that I generally look for, because it's not, especially with the political climate that we live in right now, it's not ever a given that trans people are. For me, I don't take it as a given that I am welcome in any space. And so having some kind of indication, whether it's by language or like through language or through some kind of something that indicates that my presence might have been taken into consideration helps me feel like I can access that space. Um, yeah, and generally just being asked questions, like people asking me and asking everyone who is present, what do you need? What helps you? That kind of openness and curiosity to hearing people as people. Um, yeah, I find that helpful.
Okay, and do you think that is important for those you are working with and interact as part of your social life or professional environment to know that you are a non-binary person?
I think it's I guess it's a big part of who I am, not just for my own, obviously because of it being part of my identity and um and also because of all the things that deconstructing, I guess for me, queerness and transness is goes beyond just the gender identity. It's kind of opened doors for me to deconstruct so much of the binaries and the normativity and the structures that um, dictate how life is lived. And so it's a big part of myself and the way that I carry myself and also the way that I approach life, I approach relating with people, and my choices that I make. And so it feels important for people to, if people want to know me for me, then that is a big part of me, which doesn't necessarily mean like you need to know that I'm non-binary, but I need you to respect uh, how I choose to be in this space, and everything that I bring, and it doesn't necessarily um, mean completely agreeing on everything, but respecting who I am and what I bring. Um, and yeah, and with that, I also have a choice of how much I want to share in each space and with each person. But ideally, it would be nice to not have to choose to not share myself because that comes from a place of needing to defend myself in some way. Um, so yeah, I guess it's important in thinking of that is part of knowing all of me.
Mhm. And do you think that training in performative arts could improve the lives of trans, non-binary people?
Um, yeah, I definitely know that that's done that for me. It does it for me. and I'm really passionate about being like the possibility of sharing that with others, and I feel like it can be beneficial for everyone, and definitely for I feel like it's I can speak from my own experience, I guess, of using the body mostly, but I feel like it can be true for a lot of the performing arts that I feel it's a very powerful space to explore and to practice um creativity and being playful and being curious, and that and and using that as a way to explore ourselves, and how we can bring ourselves into life and into spaces. It's also, I think it's a real, it's an incredible tool for connecting with ourselves and how we feel, and therefore getting in touch with how that can translate into how we present ourselves and how we choose to relate with other people. Um, And I think it's also a great space to practice taking up space and
Mhm.
um, being brave, building a voice, and speaking up, and and practicing that as something that can be taken outside of the performance space into life as well. And yeah, I feel like it's such a great training for um, disrupting and creating revolutions.
Mhm.
Um,
And what changes do you think that are necessary to take place in the field of performing arts to create environments that are safe, accessible, non-discriminative, non-judgmental?
I think um, there is one layer of this that is about um, the practicalities of like using language that is um, allowing for all gender identities and some, yeah, gender expansive language and facilities within a physical space that include like gender neutral spaces and not just gendered spaces, and making explicit statements on where a space, an organization, or a person stands politically. Um, I think this is one layer of it. Another layer is also the personal journeys and personal uh, learning, and learning about unconscious biases and learning about the structures that we exist in that can be deconstructed, and that um, influence how we relate to people and therefore can be changed. Um, and and also just talking to people, talking to trans people, asking questions, being curious. Um, and I think there is something really important to me about trans people isn't one thing. As in the same way as um, any intersectional identity isn't one thing. Each person who is a trans person is different, comes with different ways of being, comes with different things that they might find comfortable or uncomfortable. And so I think asking questions, being curious, and not assuming that one thing is going to work for everyone, I think that feels really important. And so establishing that openness and that conversation feels really important.
Mhm. Okay. And there is something else that you want to add or share regarding the topic?
Let me see. I'm gonna have a look at my notes, see if there's anything. Um, I think maybe I just want to say that also um, transness or any exploration of gender isn't something that has to be linear. There isn't a starting point and an end point, and it can be a process that's constantly happening, constantly changing. Like my identity is constantly changing, and that is true of how I feel about myself, and also true of how I might choose to present um, to other people. I've changed my name quite a few times. I like that's a, and I'm not trying to get to a final point. It's I'm in the process, and that's gonna keep going forever. And I sometimes I hear that um, the discourse around trans people or the conversations around um, these kind of topics are still existing within that like fixed notion of identity and that binary of like we were here, we're not happy, and we're gonna get to the happy place. It's like no, for some people that can be true. And also there is space for changing and for being in motion. That's always there. And so I feel like that's really important to keep part of the conversation when also when thinking about what does it mean to create spaces that are welcoming and um, and to not expect that of people and to make space for that change to be present and to meet everyone as they're coming each day without assuming that it's going to be the same as the day before. Um, yeah.
Thank you very much. It was very nice to hear your opinion and your openness regarding the questions. And thanks a lot again for your availability to take this interview.